So I'm kind of casual with this stuff, and I tend to wander and talk, and I like to walk around as well, so I hope that doesn't throw anyone off. I also always have to say hello at the start, otherwise I'll forget, and I'll barrel through the content without saying, hi, hello, how are you? So there you go. You don't persuade people through reason. You do it through emotion. Any ideas on who said that or when?
Jobs.
Good guess.
Good try.
Good try. It was a little longer. It was Aristotle. It was before Christ, so timely with now that we're in Lent. You don't persuade people through reason, you do it through emotion. Now, that may be a new concept when I'm talking to university students, but I'm sure all of you living and working and being involved with design, marketing, branding, you live this every day. You know this. We know that we tend to sell more when we do it through emotive ways. So tonight we're going to talk about a few tools that designers and marketers can use and how to leverage those things across the customer journey. Generally speaking, our brains take in a lot of information every day. But our memories are really selective. We don't necessarily keep everything up here. We only remember things that make an impact with us, that go above and beyond and over and above expectation. And as marketing campaigns have become increasingly complex, the tactile things in life, the physical things in life, tend to make more of an impact with us. So, a little bit about me. As Mark alluded to, I've been working in the primarily Cincinnati market for about 25 years. Have had an opportunity to work with some great brands, great companies, and more importantly, some great people. I'm not necessarily the smartest guy out there, but I've been fortunate enough to rub elbows with a lot of really smart people, and I picked up a few things along the way. I also have a creative side, so I like to kind of balance those two things, the business and the creative. So you'll see some of that in some of the things that I talk about. Those are all paintings that I did. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. Spent most every Saturday morning at the Toledo Art Museum because I was good at drawing. And a lot of designers and graphic professionals were good at drawing, and they were led down this path. Probably a few of you here. Additionally, everyone's seen this, right? I really loved watching this show as a kid. And I loved seeing all the products and the packaging and the prices too. It was kind of a nice guess. It was something interesting to kind of think about that I saw on a day-to-day basis. So those two things, an interest in art, an interest in packaging, brought me to where else? Cincinnati, Ohio. I also thought about Atlanta, but my wife had never been there, so we decided to move to Cincinnati. Also did a little stint in Louisville. Spent about 6 years working there in an advertising firm. These two cities are very different. Cincinnati is a design, marketing, brand town. Louisville, it's design, but it's advertising. And it's a little different. And part of it, which was, I had always worked for design and marketing and branding firms in Cincinnati, primarily in support of the Procter & Gamble's and Kroger's and big name consumer goods companies. Louisville was a little different. I was brought down there really because of my knowledge of branding from Cincinnati. The Louisville market didn't have that and didn't have people that spoke that same language. And there I learned about restaurants, and I learned about healthcare and branding in different environments than just the consumer goods packaging and retail that we live and breathe here in town. So at any rate, along the way, I got a degree from Bowling Green, Bachelor of Fine Arts. I've got a Master's of Design from DAP. I've taught at DAP, I've taught at Miami and at U of L. So credentials on the table. But in my heart of hearts, I started off as a print guy, right? I love print. I love ink. I love paper and different substrates. I love the tactile nature of that. How many people have heard this?
A lot lately.
A lot lately. That's bull. I mean, you can't go through your day without having something in your hand that's printed. It may be different. We may not be subscribing to the newspaper and reading that on a daily basis for 45 minutes when we can look through a curated bit of news on our smartphones. But print is still around, and it's still very relevant. So I started off as a young designer working on the Bounce brand, Bounce packaging in particular. And there's a couple things I was fortunate. One, I was fortunate to be at the agency I was with at the time. They gave me a long enough leash that I was able to work on a brand with fewer resources. Fewer resources on the agency side and fewer on the client side. So it gave me the opportunity to wear a lot of different hats. And in the years after, I would go on to work on packaging and branding for a lot of big names, primarily with Procter & Gamble and others. I've put ink on virtually every substrate there is. Along the way, I also learned that, you know what? Print is valuable from a business to business standpoint. It's valuable outside of just the package. It's valuable in sales and marketing materials and explaining to a customer of a major manufacturer why their co-op funds are going to be used in a particular manner. It's good for sales and marketing shows, being able to hand something tangible to someone in a specific location, space and place. It's certainly seen in advertising in print, in magazines and newspapers still, and brochures. But along the way I realized that it's more than just a particular piece that I'm doing. There's a whole omni-channel grouping of materials that come together that make an impression with a particular audience. So the graphics, the design, the strategy work, all has to come together to make an important impact with that audience at different times throughout their day and their purchase cycle. So, omni-channel marketing. This is kind of a collection of things I've learned from some great people at some great brands. I'm going to talk a little bit about understanding an audience, briefly on market research and consumer personas, go a little more in depth in that, why that's important, and talk about the customer journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about specific targeted and tactile communication, and then putting it all together. And we've got until, I think, 11 o'clock. So, sorry. A lot of this is just highly visual, and I'll be talking over it. So, just to level set, omni-channel, when I say that, cross-channel content strategy. The word omni-channel is thrown around a lot these days. Multi-channel versus omni-channel, basically what we're talking about is making sure that everything's integrated, right? Making sure that all the pieces are being leveraged towards an audience, towards a specific target in unison, versus doing things in silos. I think we all have been here, right? And certainly within different agencies or services, you know, when you're working within one, boy, you'd really love to impact the other. Major marketers have come to realize that it's better to have that all coordinated and make sure that they're getting a better bang for their buck. So this I found interesting. 80% of people are researching stuff online, but still buying in brick and mortar. Now that might not be for everything and not every category. And we've certainly switched over to buying a lot of staple goods directly from Amazon Prime and just having it show up at our doorstep. But people are still going to brick and mortar. Space and place, still very important. So, understanding an audience, why people are doing things and what their motivation is. Back in the day, this was pretty easy. Mom, dad, 2.3 kids, a dog, house in the suburbs with a white picket fence. Mom was squarely she was the target. It was pretty easy, especially in a day and age where there were only 3 major networks that had commercials. PBS was there as well, but only 3 major networks, and if you put an ad on the 6 o'clock news on each of those 3 within a week, everyone in the country knew about your product, your offering. Things have become much more fragmented. We can't rely just on specific demographics anymore because the market is so much more fragmented. We've got so many more different choices with media dollars as marketers. How do you want to place your bet today? It was easy, now it's harder. Because we've become a much more diverse society. Or maybe we always were, but there's a recognition of that today. And you see that just in terms of two sitcoms that are out there between Father Knows Best and this one, which will shortly be finished as well. But overall, you have to have empathy for people. How people want to live is probably the most important thing. What their aspirations are, how they're thinking about themselves outside of their demographic numbers. You want to make sure that whatever you're saying is relevant to that audience, that they're interested, that they are the actual market that you're looking to. And you want to balance functional attributes of products or services with something that's emotional, the branding portion of it. A few years back, I was fortunate enough to go to the KFC marketing convention where all of the franchisees were there, it was held in Dallas. And the keynote speaker, Brian Nichols, is a former P&G guy, went to work at Taco Bell, now he's at Chipotle. He gave the keynote. Of course, all these franchisees were like, what the hell is this guy from Taco Bell doing coming talking to us? What's he know about chicken? Well, he's a real smart guy. His whole thing was sales overnight, brand over time. And the balance of those two things is what produces a successful marketing campaign. A continuous and a continuously successful marketing initiative for a brand. Sales overnight, brand over time. If you focus too much on one or the other, you'll wind up flipping that teeter-totter. So understanding the target's really important. The strategic target overall we're familiar with as far as the group of people that might buy your product. You know, they're the focus of everything. That prime prospect, though, those are the people that are more apt to buy it now. So we need to make sure that we're pointing our communication at that person, and we'll carry others with it. How they want to live is really important. How do we do that? Through consumer research, through in-person, direct observation, through shop-alongs in-store, going in-home, talking to people, understanding how they live, and looking at things through a designer's eye. Co-creation sessions with consumers, understanding and benefiting from their knowledge and putting ourselves in their shoes, having empathy for them. So it is Ash Wednesday, Lent. I want to talk a little bit about fish. Who eats fish? Who eats fish once a week? The fried fish or broiled? Broiled.
Any kind.
Any kind. Okay. So we just have some numbers here. I'd say more than half eat fish. Very few eat fried, mostly broiled. About half once a week. I don't know if that's true, but that's what you said. Okay, this is all relevant information. It's all interesting. You can gather some insights from it, of course. But I want to introduce you to Mike. So this is Mike. He's a young boomer, born in 1960. Married his high school sweetheart, Lisa. They have 2 kids who attend the same schools that they did. Mike works at a Ford plant and just celebrated his 30th year on the line. Mike and his family live in a 2,000 square foot home he bought just before his first child was born. Lisa works as a secretary at their old high school. Although Mike has a cell phone, he prefers receiving calls on his landline. Mike spends his weekends attending high school sporting events, fishing, and sitting in his driveway, drinking American beers just after he cuts the lawn. He has great relationships with his neighbors and friends and is a member of the VFW, about a mile away, where he runs the event calendar and goes to play poker at least once a month. Mike served 2 years in the Army and is proud of his service. Mike and his family attend church every Sunday. The priest not only baptized his kids, but Father David baptized Mike too. Mike also regularly attends the community annual Lent fish fry. They lovingly call him the Fry King. The fellow volunteers even bought him a special apron and hat that say Fry King. Mike knows he's a few pounds overweight, but that doesn't stop him from his favorite comfort foods when he has a chance, including fast food, Long John Silver's, and anything else for a quick dinner or lunch. He loves a trip to Sears. It's his man time. He regularly stops by the auto counter to visit his buddies and talk about the big game from the night before. Mike has an old Craftsman tool set he inherited from his father with a few extra pieces he picked up at a community garage sale. His wife Lisa handles most of the family shopping duties, including groceries and even new clothes for Mike. He constantly reminds her of the family budget. He loves finding a good deal, but he sees the buffet as the ultimate deal in food. Golden Corral is his restaurant of choice for a special evening out. So you can see that's a little more robust, and you get a better sense of who a specific target market might be than just the numbers. Most all of these numbers told that same story, but bringing it to life in a visual format helps to ground you in who you're actually speaking to, who the audience is. So what drives Mike? Family. What's that mean? He likes sharing things. Nostalgia. He has a heart for the familiar. He likes community, and that means events to him, sharing with other people. He loves a value, and that means abundancy to him. And flavor means choice. So these are the types of things that drive Mike. This is Anita. I won't read through her story. She was a secondary target for this market. You see a much different background, a much different set of circumstances, but relationships, friends, family, value were still things that came through. So this was one of the ads that were created. It was for Long John Silver's. It's about 4 or 5 years ago.
America loves a fish fry. And at St. Al's Church, they've been doing it right since the Pope was an altar boy. But you don't have to go to St. Al's for fish that special. Just come on over to Long John Silver's. Rediscover the taste you love. Long John Silver's. We're America's fish fry.
So that one it hit a couple times throughout the year. You can see the background, the type, the temperament, the tone, all met the personas that we had created. We had a multi-ethnic group. We had friends, family at an event. It was focused on a fish fry that had nothing to do with Long John Silver's, so it was kind of that soft sell of fish and the idea, the emotive qualities that you have when you're with a group of people like that. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you can have this experience at. So, customer journey and path to purchase, not the same thing. Often used interchangeably, but customer journey is more from the consumer side. It's the decision-making experience consumers have before, during, and after purchase. The path to purchase is that cross-channel content strategy. That's how a marketer is trying to gain and retain customers, create and keep. So, these things should be aligned. So as an audience is exploring different options, marketers should be creating materials that build awareness. This is, again, across all channels. As people are starting to evaluate specific features, they should be thinking about the impact, or the marketers looking to impact that decision. Promote the point of parity or point of difference for the specific features of that product or service. Of course, we're all trying to drive towards sales or purchase. The brand and the product experience, actually having, holding, eating, becoming involved in a whatever it is that you're promoting, that experience of it is what really it's all about. And that helps to expand frequency and usage, retaining. People wind up repeating their purchase. Hopefully they become an advocate through social, through recommendations, word of mouth. And as they become an advocate for the brand, it becomes a trusted endorsement for the marketer. It's also peer recognition for potentially for the individual. Print can be a vital component across any aspect of this. Just really depends on the type of product or service that you're promoting. Again, within fish, driving towards sale in store. Different consumers will have different touch points, different things that they find more relevant, but print can work at virtually any point of this through advertisements to build awareness, couponing to drive traffic, certainly in-store, point of purchase, menu boards, display units, each with different specific, very specific and pointed communication. So focused communication to promote action. Within KFC, this is a similar cycle for a lot of different brands, but within KFC, awareness and trials typically happening outside of the brand, outside of the specific location, the bricks and mortar. Those things have to be more heavily branded, KFC, to rise above the clutter of all of the other communication that's out there. Once you've made the decision to go to the location, either in-store or through the drive-thru, you've committed. But they need to communicate, in this instance, very specific things about maybe particular events. The outdoor signage, you have to know where to go, how to get in, where's the drive-thru. Purchase additional items that exist to drive traffic. Sales at the menu board to upsell you. The dining experience, when you're actually eating the food, that's another opportunity to drive home different types of messaging and enhance the overall experience. Afterwards, there are opportunities for people to drive increased frequency, and then also become advocates or someone that would recommend the brand to others. So loyalty programs, social media, email, direct mail, all become relevant points of contact. Print is not dead. Within a more upscale restaurant where you're seated, you might have to wait first you're deciding to dine, where to dine. You go to the restaurant, you're greeted by a hostess. You have to wait in a waiting area. There's a bar. There's the journey to the table where the hostess or the waitress is taking you to the table itself. You're seating, you're ordering, you're waiting for the food, dining. Then there's the end of meal and the post-dining experience. These are all opportunities to have some level of messaging pointed to specific targeted communication. Just seated, you're typically getting the drink menu and the dessert menu. But maybe that should happen earlier to build some anticipation of something. Maybe that actually should be at the bar or at the waiting area so that you go to the bar if there's a long wait. And a restaurant can kind of balance some of this communication with how busy they are or what night of the week it is. Healthcare, a little different. This is an example of a dental practice journey. You've got regular patients, you've got people that just need something done. Some level of trigger is going to get them to make a decision I need to find a dentist. Typically it's a 70-day research cycle for new dentists. Most of that's online, but some of it's word of mouth, some of it's through direct mail, some of it's looking on social. So then they've made the decision, they're going to the dental office, they've made the appointment. What's the in-office experience like? Where is there opportunity there for a marketer to communicate with a particular patient? Are they going to return? Regular patient? Yes. And then there's a retention cycle there. How do you keep them in the loop? No, they're done, or maybe, can you reactivate them? Is there some trigger, either time frame or the type of work they had done, or something else that came out of the consumer experience? Something that you can use as a way to engage and continue the conversation. B2B, sometimes much more complex. And these are just examples of some kind of snapshots of some different clients throughout the years. This, the triggers here are different than going out to a restaurant. Might be a new business expansion, might be failure of some equipment, maybe upgrading equipment. These are all drivers where someone might buy some heavy equipment. They're going to do research, much like anything else. A lot of that will happen online, but they're going to look through a lot of print materials too, if they have it in hand. Inquiry, transaction, post-sale, these are all areas where there might be opportunity to make a connection, to continue the conversation, to maintain the relationship. Media choices are vast, right? There are an awful lot of things out there that a marketer can gamble on, that they can place their bet. Place their bet here and here. Did it work? We'll try it again in a different way. Sometimes they don't get another opportunity to do that. So understanding what works and what will provide results is really important. Certainly there are an awful lot of traditional things. There are more and more digital avenues every day, but print is still relevant. Because we're driving traffic, we're driving sales, we're driving to the purchase. Anything that's out there is something that can help support that effort. Within appliances, major appliances, there are typically 3 drivers where someone might be looking for a new appliance for the home. They moved, they were doing a remodel, or something broke. Now, if your microwave broke, what's your purchase cycle on that? How quickly would you buy a new one?
Next day.
Next day? That day? Okay. Usually water heaters next day, usually. Microwave, you can wait till it goes on sale. At any rate, 80% of consumers start online. 94% make their purchase in-store. I'm still hard-pressed to think anyone would buy a refrigerator online and just have it shipped, but that may change. I like to see the fit and finish. People are buying cars online too, so. Online is important at every step and stage here, and even more important, online in-store. A lot of times, retailers and marketers aren't necessarily aligned to how physical materials are replenished in store, how they're maintained. Now, Procter & Gamble does a wonderful job with point-of-purchase displays in store. Frito-Lay does a much better job. Why is that? Frito-Lay is primarily a direct route sales company. That's an organization that has, I don't know how many thousands of drivers that are packing their trucks at 2 in the morning, and they have relationships with every store they go to, and they're packing the shelves. And if there's a point-of-purchase display, it's up when it needs to be up, it's fixed if it needs to be fixed, and it's taken down when it needs to be taken down. Other companies that don't have that direct relationship are at maybe 30%, 40% if they're lucky, of having the things up when they need to be up and taken down when they need to be taken down. A lot of it never leaves the loading dock, because if you rely on the retailer to do it, it doesn't happen. More and more people are moving to online. But again, it's still hard for consumers to understand, right there and compare. You often can't compare prices across. But at any rate, a journey to shelf, for packaging at least, becomes very important. At 30 feet, you want to be visible. You want to interrupt and get noticed. You want to build a brand block. 10 feet, you want to invite people in. At 3 feet, you want people to select it and pick it up. I was fortunate enough to work on some big projects with GE, and one of which was redesigning all their packaging parts, or their parts packaging. We went into extensive consumer research on this. They had a shelf set that had been designed and produced over the period of maybe 20 years, and none of it was cohesive. It was a great opportunity for us to go in and make some adjustments and changes. But we went in and talked to the consumers and found out, that what was most important from a visual standpoint, the name of the product. And in many cases, we renamed the products. So the name was important. Description of use, the color, being able to find it, will it fit my product? These are all important things. And we redesigned a package using that hierarchy. This is not the sexiest thing in the world, but it made a huge impact. It won in consumer testing, it won with the retailer with a line review, and it won some packaging awards as well. Because the hierarchy of communication was there, so that we were meeting the expectation and targeting the right communication at the right time when someone was having and holding and picking this thing up. And that was a whole line of SKUs. Surprise and delight. There's an awful lot you can do with packaging as far as just doing something whimsical, fun. This is pretty interesting, just playing off the actual physical nature of the pasta itself. And as anyone in the packaging industry can tell, okay, well, that's going to cost more. You got a die cut, you got a cellophane wrap. But my guess is that this sells a lot better too. Probably in limited quantities. You can customize things. There are more and more things happening every day, and a lot of it with print, where things are customized to specific markets, to specific demographics, to specific individuals even. Coke is this is a great example of just how they went out with a grouping of names, and they kind of replenish that now with different names and different types of things, and it's fun to find your name or to share it with someone. Of course, packaging can be so iconic that you don't even need to show the product. The Chipotle wrap, funny thing is, this is almost like an iPhone. You see an iPhone, you see what's in your iPhone. And when I see that, I see steak, beans, no rice, onions, and lots of hot sauce. You probably see something different. So it's iconic. Now that's not even really the package so much, but there's something tactile about it, there's something recognizable about it, and it turns responses into actions. What's sexy about that? What even, there's no taste there. It's just foil. But you see inside of it what you want. So I notice and understand, I remember and I want. Engaging additional senses, touch, sight, smell, certainly taste, hearing, it helps to reinforce this stuff. Any avenue, any chance that you have to do that will help engage and impact the audience. Touch is one of the first senses we develop. Even before we can really see as babies, we can touch and feel things, hot and cold, the stroke of your mother, that sort of thing. It remains emotionally central throughout our lives. Just looking at some print materials that I've found, some local, some others, some that I stole from the internet. Scout Guide in Cincinnati, that's a series that goes out in a number of cities. But they've taken great care to do something with embossing and foil stamping. It makes it more upscale. It's a print piece, but it has the look and feel. It feels very much like it can fit within this, kind of more upscale, more vintage sort of vibe. It takes you to a specific time and place. Half of all printed advertising can be meaningfully upgraded with some enhanced print finishing techniques. Some tactile, some foil, some a shine, something that makes it more unique and interesting. Not everything can. But there's certainly some interesting things happening here. with the technology that Graphic Village has. Something as simple as using some materials here to create Braille on a piece. Now, I'm not sure how big the demographic is, but I can imagine that people that are impacted with or have involvement with someone that's blind in their life, they would find this interesting even more so than if they use it themselves. There are any number of things that can be enhanced and given a little bit of added character and impact. Again, be it a shine, something raised, foil. It gives a certain quality to it. It's often upscale, dimensional. A lot of it seems to be in liquor. I would imagine that's because of the price point. Now the interesting thing about liquor, now this is a few years ago, maybe another timely sort of thing. When you start thinking about personas and the people that are buying things, what's most relevant, this was a really interesting chart I came across. I use it a lot, but basically it plots liquor brands by purchase on whether or not the purchasers skew Democratic or Republican, or are they high turnout or low turnout voters. So, putting it all together, print central to an omni-channel approach. What's this? Tiffany. No one even thinks twice, right? iPhone. There's a certain expectation when you buy these things, when you have them. When there's a process. It's an experiential thing. So, okay. Iconic, yes, I get it. Can print really be omni-channel? Well, just this week, Smuckers came out with, I guess the answer to the age-old question, is it GIF or is it GIF? And they took a stand, hard G, GIF, soft G, GIF. These are sold on Amazon for $9.99. They are sold out. You can only buy them on eBay now, I think, and when I checked earlier today, they're going for $50. Now, are they going to sell a lot of things? No. Are they gaining some attention in social media? Gaining some PR? Certainly. Is this omni-channel? Yes. The package, front and center, becomes something that exists over and above just the physical form. There's all kinds of limited edition things that happen every year, from artistic things. Bud Light this year came out with aluminum solo cups that could be washed and reused.
Those beers were $25, so they should be.
Yeah. not the least of which the tickets, those are printed too, but those are pretty expensive. They also do a limited edition can for each Super Bowl, and that maybe a little more accessible to the average person, but it's front and center in all their advertising. They're taking credit for that limited edition can, aluminum bottle, in virtually all their pieces and across all their marketing. What about this guy? Certainly iconic. In my opinion, the only choice.
Is the green different on there?
Well, my slides might not be color accurate. Iconic, yes. Color, shape. They use that same bottle shape on virtually everything, whether it's plastic or glass. I think restaurants may be the only ones still using the glass bottles. Well, that's not the case. But even on their small packets, they're taking over that shape. And you can use it two ways. You can peel it back and dip, or you can tear off the top and squeeze it. Pretty innovative stuff, I'd say. They came out with, anyone that is from Pittsburgh, is anyone from Pittsburgh in the room? No, we don't like those people, right? I've known a few people from Pittsburgh over the course of my career and in college, and they all knew how to shake the ketchup out. It's at this angle, and you slap it on the 57. So, why not? Put it on shelf like that. Pretty interesting stuff. Front and center to that particular campaign. Certainly a limited edition. I don't think they're going to continue doing that, but Heinz does actually a lot of really cool stuff with their packaging. Not the least of which, again, Super Bowl this year. They did a box score. So the label itself, front and center to the sweepstakes game that you participate with online. You're probably having and holding that bottle of ketchup more often than you would have otherwise throughout the game, checking, double checking, what was the number again at each quarter. So pretty interesting way that packaging and print become front and center in what I would truly call an omni-channel approach. So we know that loyalty will increase with multiple senses. Got another example here. Everyone familiar with Minions? If you haven't seen the movies, you've maybe been annoyed by the presents everywhere. So when Universal was coming out with this, it was a spin-off of Despicable Me, taking some of the characters out into their own world. They anticipated it to be kind of an unexpected box office hit. The production costs were minor, pretty low. So they had a lot of budget to work with, great profitability. They wanted to develop these characters further. Sure, there are all the things that you would expect. Clings in fast food, display units in fast food, tie-ins with Happy Meal type stuff. That's all pretty well, just part of the process of putting out a kid's movie. But they did some other things certainly as well, more experiential. And of course then, once it became more profitable and more brand aware, they were able to introduce things on site at Universal Studios where, breakfast with Cinderella at Disney, well, you can have breakfast with the Minions at Universal. But they also did some other things, appropriate things that made sense. They had some equity in yellow, in the shape. They came out with Tic Tacs, to introduce the characters. I would wager these probably exist, in drawers and toy bins all across the country still. Twinkie, that's brilliant, right? And tie that into, boy, I wish I'd thought of that. Yeah, so what else can you do with yellow? What else can you do with the color?
Bello. Mr. Lucky. Aspetta.
Pretty cute, it's fun. A couple things going on there. I think that's brilliant, a great way to kind of break through the clutter and deliver a message to virtually anyone, I guess, in this instance, to promote this new movie, to promote brand awareness of this new movie, to drive people to buy tickets. Certainly was beneficial for Amazon as well. I think they basically charged about 30 cents per package. It took about 5 cents, maybe a little more, for them actually to print all these per package. So they're making a pretty decent sum of money over this, I think it was maybe 2 weeks where they did this.
So who paid for that? Was it Amazon?
Universal paid Amazon. Amazon Prime works at a deficit. I think maybe they have subscribers that cover about half the cost of shipping. But they can do something like this where they're, the other folks can't. They just really can't. And the volumes are such that, so it's a great way for them to offset some of the costs that they have and do something kind of fun and interesting. I want to watch that again. So there was a hashtag campaign that went along with that, which was a way for both Amazon and Universal to really drive engagement. Consumer created content, use of social media, and really create a culture or community of people that were interested in Minions. Turning print into an omni-channel experience. So be noticed, be different and stand out, feel, touch it, have it, interact with it, and remember it. Make it something that's interesting. So they did that through this hashtag campaign where they had people take a photo of themselves with the package. I don't know how many thousands of people did this, but pretty fun, a great way for a brand to interact with their consumers. Certainly they're collecting data on this stuff when it goes online in social. But again, print, front and center, as part of an omni-channel approach. I think it's pretty cool. So, switching to a different category. No one knows what that is, do they? CBD is like the next big thing, right? You can't go anywhere without hearing about some new brand. There were an awful lot of brands that were out there, a lot in the kind of traditional space, a lot in this kind of medicinal, functional space, not a lot moving up into this kind of, we'll call it spa, edgy, adventuresome space. The Apper brand, which is owned by botanical company out of Denver, came to an agency I was with at the time, and we did positioning work, persona work, initial brand and design work on this. Came up with the idea of brash sophistication, targeting young women as the potential users of this product. Had all the demographics that suggested that would be appropriate, and the areas where they were. We knew all the things that they were involved with from a media standpoint, the brand affinity that they had for different things. And just to be cautious of time, I won't read through all this. But so much like Mike from Long John Silver's, this was created around this new CBD brand. And it again tells a story of this person, their involvement with, hospital and healthcare, and interest in science, their interest in fitness, in controlling their body and what they put into it, but also their relationships and their family, and the types of brands that they're interested in and involved with. She doesn't go to GNC to buy supplements. She goes to Oily or buys things from Hum online. Loves her Subaru. Loves Netflix, don't we all? Binges on Prime. Has a Peloton. These are all things that kind of shape the individual. And it shaped all the brand communication that we had as well. Now this is a brand that sells primarily, or will be selling primarily online. So it's, that's kind of the first interaction people have is through social or through online. But the packaging becomes front and center on there because it becomes a representative of the brand and something that they wind up having in their home in the second moment of truth. So the packaging has to represent the same sort of edgy vibe and interest that we feel like this would be most attracted to across all the different offerings. So, okay, almost done here. We only remember things that make an impact. Quality is certainly something that impacts decision. Differentiation. Omni-channel, are we seeing it in multiple places? And are we leveraging other senses? Maybe above and beyond what we typically would think of with whatever channel it is that we're using. And the fifth thing, tactile embellishments are memorable and can turn cognitive responses into actions. And you look at this at first and think, oh, that's the ocean. It's a lake. It's the sunrise coming over the water. No, it's print. This is print. This is print. This is print. That one blows me away. So, and the booklets you have in front of you, those are print. That's it. Welcome.